Now we're going to look at the key of C major. There's going to be so much overlap with everything that we looked at in the key of A major. It's all applicable. You just have to transpose it to this new key. But the reason why I think C major is important is because it's common. There's going to be lots of songs. All the different instruments like to play in C major generally. But also, this gives you a different fingering, different layout of the shapes and the scale across the strings in first position, etc. If we had chosen a key like D major, basically there's 3 strings that would have the same fingering as if you were in the key of A major, just moved over a string. So you can do that on your own. If you want to learn how to play in D major, for instance, you can just practice the things over a string and you're more than halfway there for learning things in first position. But now we're going to go to C major because it's totally different fingering. Let's learn the C major scale. We're starting on C here, open, E, F, G, A. Now, if I keep going, right? You could continue the scale up here, right? If you try to play C, it's going to be way high up there. It's not very practical to look for it, up here down by your fretboard extension. But I think for now, you can for sure learn this and really drill this up to C here or up to E, or we're going to do some things even up to G here. So practice the scale, ascending and descending. So there are different ways you can do these fingerings when you're trying to get up to this, what is that, the 8th fret? You can choose to shift there with your 3rd finger, or use my 2nd finger, or you could use your 1st finger. So I just really want you to identify where these notes are, and you can really experiment with different fingerings. And a lot of times I'm playing things in this position, 2nd position anyway, so, right? So let's do that same alternating pattern we did at the beginning of studying A major. So we've got this, jumping a note, going back down to the note in between, and let's just carry this on all the way up the scale, up to here. For instance. What if I did the same thing but descending? Let's do it again, slower. Remember, we can take that same idea, the alternating scale pattern going up, but what if we emphasize each pair of notes? So I'll just spend more time on repeating them. For instance. Now let's do that alternating pattern where we do groups of 4 notes like this. Go back down to C, now up to D. A little faster. Remember that we did a similar pattern but descending, so groups of 4 notes, and I'm going to do it on G like this, and this sounds like this. The important detail here is that for shifting downward, generally speaking, I like to use my second finger like this. So I'm starting on G. What is that, the 15th fret? I can also use my first finger, so you can just practice both of those techniques. We're going to do that same type of ascending, alternating pattern. Again, we're going to do that rhythmic figure. So try this one out. A similar rhythmic pattern that we looked at before, if we're doing in the key of C, check this one out. Faster. What if we did the same type of idea, but now starting on C and descending? What if we did it faster? And then that one rhythmic pattern where we did all eighth notes ascending. So we're doubling up on the first note, jumping to E and then back down to C, and then doing the next group of notes. So and then the similar idea where we're descending, but I'm going to play C 2 times, then B, and then A. Now let's look at the C major arpeggio. We want to identify the arpeggio notes, the first, the third, the fifth notes of the scale in different positions up the neck. So C major arpeggio in first position, C, E, G, and then C again. Now, we can do the same arpeggio up here. Earlier, I mentioned this idea of second position, which is closed position, right? Because it's letting me reach with my fourth finger this, the C note. Now, what if we play both of those arpeggios, both octaves together? That's one way to do it. That's another way. Now let's do these inversions where we start on C and then we're going to arpeggiate, then we'll start on E and arpeggiate that up to the next E. So something like this. Right? And if I put those back to back, now we looked at a cross-picking arpeggio pattern before. So I'm going to start on this, play the arpeggio down. Now go start on the next arpeggio note. So there's a couple tricky things in this one, because if I'm starting here, okay, I can use my first finger again to bar to get that G note. Here, I can use my first finger, kind of discreetly grab that E note, which really puts me in position, like in first position again. So I can go, then I've got C and I have to hit that G again, so I can roll my finger over, kind of lay my finger down. That's the kind of stuff you have to do to really be able to execute these, little tricks to kind of figure out the fingerings. So with all of these arpeggio notes that we've learned in C major, let's put those together and do this double stop drill. Let's identify where the double stops are. So where are those different combinations? You can have open G and E. You can do this double stop. You could play here. This is really third position, but I'm just thinking about the same shapes as we did before, right? This one, this possibility. Right here. You could be right here. We also looked at playing double stops where you're walking up the scale. So not just playing the C arpeggio double stops, but also the different possibilities from all of the scale notes, right? If you're arpeggiating, you start out on C, and then you go up to D and arpeggiate, and so on. So you've got this one. And really, you can just take this shape, and the important thing to learn from this is how this shape transfers and just walks up the neck. So I'm going to go like this. So I made it all the way up here to the 15th fret on the A string and then the 12th fret on the E string. So we've got Now, how could you utilize this information where these double stops are located to play something more musical? Let me show you a little exercise, just a musical phrase, a kind of melodic line that would utilize these double stops, kind of working in and out of these positions. So if I play this type of idea, this is really utilizing these double stop shapes. Maybe another idea in this position. So what I did here, I'm using this double stop position, right, where I've got my first finger on C on the root. I'm doing some pickup notes. Walking up, and then I'm going to jump up to this double stop shape. And then from here, I want to grab this note that's like a passing note, right? Just raising up that fifth note to a sixth to an A note. But this one, when I play an F and an A, that sounds like I'm going to an F chord because I go. And then here, I'm playing an A and a C. That sounds like I'm going to an F also. Now we're going to take that concept of playing these double stops, these two-note combinations, right? And we're going to fill in that shape with a third note. And from there, we're going to build this pattern. I love playing this kind of thing. It's just such a pretty, cool, melodic sound. G all the way on the 15th fret. Now go down, down. Right? Let's do it faster. Now what if we did this group of notes? So right, this is the shape we're operating out of now. So moving on, what do all of the different arpeggios look like in the key of C major? What I'm calling diatonic arpeggios. That means where I'm playing a C arpeggio, and then I'm going to go to D and arpeggiate that. So that's like D minor, and then E, F, G, A, B, and then C again. So what we have it's also useful if you take this shape and look at it in different ways. So I could take this and just go up the neck. Right? Or even if I was right here. Then, what if I take that top note and lower it? C would be C major 7, right? And so on. I like this position right here. Go up. Now that you have that C major 7 idea under your fingers, try that same shape, but then we're going to do this pattern where we play that, and then we'll basically play it again, but we'll change that top note from a B to an A. So this sounds really pretty. Now move up to the D and try the same thing, but with the corresponding scale notes. To me, it kind of is this classical arpeggio etude. Now here's a really musical exercise where we're going to do the same type of C major 7 arpeggio, but we're going to add a note on top. So right there we've made it a little bit more complicated because we're working across 3 strings. And you can do that same thing. I know it seems complicated, but if you're just following the same type of shape idea, you would just move this shape up to D and then do the corresponding arpeggio. And then here on E, you just have to make changes along the way for, sticking to the C major scale, because at different times you'll have to move your fingers to accommodate where the scale notes are. For the purposes of exercising it, I recommend just repeating the same shape a couple times and then moving up. We're really trying to ingrain this shape, the different shapes, moving it up the scale. We can do that thing where we play the 1 chord, the C major, and then go to the 5th, so the G7 arpeggio also. So we're going to start with the C major arpeggio down. Then here I'm going to grab this G7 arpeggio. But this is what this sounds like together. Surely there's different fingerings you can do. How would you play the C major pentatonic scale on mandolin? Remember, we have the C, the first note, the second note, the third, skip the 4th, jump up to the 5th, have the 6th note in there as well. It's that sound. It's kind of like Angeline the Baker. So you can just think, how would Angeline the Baker go in the key of C? So all of those notes are the C major pentatonic scale, right? And as we discussed before, the same group of notes, if you started on the 6th tone, so on A, that would actually be the A minor pentatonic scale. So you've got and we're going to look here in a minute at the key of A minor in particular and some ideas, so that'll come back. So much you can do with A minor pentatonic. And another important sound that I want you guys to be aware of is how you would play the C7 scale, or that C mixolydian sound, which is so important in bluegrass and roots music. So just to remind you, if you flatted this the seventh note, it would be, instead of B, it would be B flat. So we have, and all of the previous scale patterns that we've looked at, you could just easily change the seventh note to a flat seven, and then you could play around with all of these patterns and give it that mixolydian sound, that C7 sound, right? So if I did this one, for instance, where we were doing this kind of alternating descending pattern, right? I'm just going to replace that B with a B flat. So it'd be, truthfully, when I'm actually playing things, a lot of times I don't fully commit to where I'm in this position where I have my fourth finger necessarily on the C note, because I feel like I really do have more strength and, you know, finesse with my third finger. So you could do something like this. Okay, now that we've looked at all these different possibilities, we've studied the scale, the arpeggio, all up the neck, and all these different patterns. With that familiarity and intuition for where the scale sounds, the scale notes are, what would be a common melody that I think you might know, but that I would challenge you to figure out where it is on the mandolin neck? An example that comes to mind is Old MacDonald. You most likely remember this tune from your childhood, or if you've had kids or grandkids, well, it's around all the time, trust me. How would this tune go in the key of C? Remember, this is just utilizing all the scale notes, and really the arpeggio notes too. You get the idea. What's another really common song that I'm sure you know? How about Jingle Bells? Everybody knows Jingle Bells. If you had to play that in the key of C without even touching your mandolin, can you imagine where that would be? Think about where the scale is in your mind without playing the notes. Do you know what your fingers would sound like if you played the different notes of the scale? Okay, let's go for it. Let's try to figure out Jingle Bells in the key of C major. I'll let you figure out the rest.